With the Nintendo Switch coming out in less than a month and Mario Odyssey on the horizon, I thought it would be fun to go back on a game that I enjoyed a lot as a kid. Super Mario All-Stars. My aunt had a Super Nintendo along with a ton of amazing games, from Mario to Zelda, to Kirby, and yes, even Bubsy. If it wasn't Super Mario Kart or World, All-Stars took me and my brother's attention. Super Mario All-Stars was a compilation of 4 games on the Nintendo Entertainment System that got the 16-bit treatment. These included the ever-popular Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 2, which was a reskin of the Japan-only Doki Panic, Super Mario Bros. 3, what's considered one of the best Mario games of all time, and Lost Levels, the true sequel to Super Mario Bros. That never left Japan until All-Stars released. There is another cartridge that has Super Mario World on it, but I'll only talk about the NES games here. I guess we'll talk about the original game first. It only makes sense. If it weren't for this game, video games may have not been as relevant. The Nintendo Entertainment System was made in 1985, a couple years after the video game crash, and with the release of Duck Hunt and Super Mario Bros., it really made video games, as well as Nintendo, as relevant as they are today. As a legacy, Super Mario Bros. Is a great game in that right. But as a game itself, going back, it hasn't really aged very well. I do have the game on my 3DS, and I really love it outside of certain obstacles, but if there weren't any save states, it'd be near impossible to beat in one go, since you kinda have to beat it in one go without dying. All-Star saves for progress every time you beat a world, so it really is much better, but holy shit are the other levels insane. As a 2D platformer, you can move with the D-pad, run with one button, and jump with another. All-Stars has 2 options for the action buttons, where you can change the B button to either action. Just the B button? Well, that's weird. The world itself is split into 8 worlds, 4 stages apiece including a castle-themed boss at the end. For the first 3 stages, you go to the end to grab a flagpole, and in the castle stages, you hit this ass the rest of these assholes. Toads. Here's what they look like in the original. Rude little shit. There are also certain pipes and blocks containing vine plants that can lead Mario to secret areas with goodies contained in them. Every world has various power-ups and hazards. Coins and blocks are everywhere in the world. Most of them are brick blocks that can either be smashed when big, or hit to contain items. Question mark and the occasional hidden blocks will either contain power-ups or coins, most containing one or multiple to hit it multiple times. Collecting 100 coins will grant Mario an extra life, as well as getting these rare green mushrooms, which you can also find in hidden blocks. The power-ups include red mushrooms, which will make Mario grow in size and become Super Mario. There are fire flowers, which can only be obtained as Super Mario and can throw fireballs at enemies. And Starman, a rare invincibility star that can destroy everything in sight. The world is also inhabited with many dangerous foes that he can jump or burn to kill. Goombas, little walnuts that just walk around on the ground. Koopas and paratroopers, red and green turtles that also walk around, but the green ones are also kind of dumb and walk off cliffs. You can't kill them with a single jump, but another jump will just move them to a certain direction. Fuzzy beetles, shelled enemies that are similar to Koopa Troopas, but they just can't be burned. Piranha plants, pipe-enclosed weeds that can munch Mario, but don't come out when Mario is near the pipe. Good opportunity to kill me. Lakitu, a cloud creature that likes to throw spinies, spiked enemies that can't be jumped on. Bullet bills, fireproof enemies that shoot out of cannons. Pataboos, castle-dwelling fireballs with the most random jump patterns. And Hammer Brothers, the bane of everyone's existence, especially in a pair. Especially in a pair. There are also firebars and a ton of bottomless pits to watch out for, but along with all of these hazards is what is probably the most slippery control. Mario is pretty hard to control on a dash, but he's also tricky to control normally with small platforms. And World 7 is just a mayhem because of all of that, as well as the annoying May Castle at the end. Frick that place. The music is also really good. Seriously, who doesn't know what the overworld theme sounds like? And the underground and bonus levels are catchy as well. So the original hasn't really aged much, and the remake here doesn't really help it much. But I will say it is a fun game despite all that, but I'll only play on the 3DS with the save states. Now let's look at Lost Levels. It's Mario 1. Only more frustrating with more bottomless pits, more aggressive enemies, and poison mushrooms that streak you down or completely kill you on contact. Screw this frickin' hellhole! Aged isn't what I'd call Lost Levels. In fact, it's so frustrating I could only get past the second stage before I moved on. Also, in this game you can play as Luigi. Well, you could do that in the original too, hence the title of course, but he was only available as a second player. Here you can play as either, with Luigi being able to jump higher but with less traction. Maybe that was the big problem with it. Oh well. Now we're here with Doki Panic. Here's a good story here. In Japan, the original Mario 2 was Lost Levels, but since it was harder than titanium beams, the other Japan exclusive known as Doki Doki Panic was reskinned and altered to become Super Mario Bros. 2 for the rest of the world. Sad too, because Doki Doki Panic could have been a pretty cool property, like other possible candidates like Ice Climber, still waiting for a new game for that. Anyway, if you have any knowledge for any Mario game, ignore it. Other than jumping and running, that's pretty much all they share. Kind of. For starters, you can play as 4 characters, which you can pick in the selection screen. And can I say, the music sounds like it could really fit in a casino. The characters include Mario, who's the more rounded of the 4, Luigi, who has the higher jump, but is more slippery when moving. Toad, despite his waist in the first game, is by far my favorite character. He can't really jump, but he has a faster movement and can pick up stuff faster. And lastly, we have the damsel Peach. Oh yeah, I forgot. In the other 2 games, she was kidnapped by a monster named Bowser Koopa. I guess it was so well known, it really didn't need mentioning. Anyway, she's not really fast in any category, but holy crap, her hover ability makes her my go-to when Polygon's pits are all over the place. Whenever you start or die, you can switch out any characters. Oh, I'm sorry, players, if you want to switch out who you're playing as. Now the big differences. The main baddie here is named Ward, a frog king that has been terrorizing the locals, and the 4 heroes need to stop him. There are also completely new enemies. Shy Guys, Tweeters, Snippets, Ninja, Trouter, Sparks, Pidget, Pokey, and Yay! Bombs. There are a lot more enemies, but these ones are either more prominent or appear as recurring enemies, like Bombs. Unlike the other games, you can't kill them by jumping. You can pick most enemies up by killing them, but unless you throw them into pits or other enemies, they won't be harmed. You also have a health bar that can be upgraded by finding and throwing these potions, taking you to subspace, and depending on where you land it, you can find a mushroom that will increase and heal up the character's health. And if you switch up the characters, it doesn't change the health either, so that's a plus. Subspace will also have wheats that contain coins that can be used for a slot machine at the end of the stage for extra lives. Yep, Doki Doki Panic has an Indian casino. Called it. Wheats in the overworld mostly contain veggies that can be used as ammo, but they can also contain the more mentioned potions, 1-up mushrooms, and Koopa shells. Yeah, they disintegrate the moment they hit a wall, so don't think they're going to be too useful. There are also occasional PAL blocks that reappear from the arcade Mario Brothers. They essentially act as a screen nuke as long as the enemies are on the ground. There are also cherries that float around the levels. Collect enough of them and a Starman will appear, so you can
destroy the entire world with your cosmic power.
The music? Oh lord, the music. I talked about the selection screen, but the overworld is just beautiful, and the subspace having a remix of the original Super Mario Bros. Theme is perfect. The underground is really catchy as well, and the boss theme is just foreboding as hell. And I didn't say much about the looks of Mario 1 now that I think about it. In the original they were kind of bland, but in All-Stars they made custom backgrounds that made the world pop. And the foreground was made better as well, with Mario and the enemies looking more alive than they did in the NES. In Super Mario Bros. 2, they don't really seem too different outside of the background. Then again, the sprite was a lot more detailed than Mario 1, so I guess that can be a factor. Bosses also take up every stage, most of them being Birdo, a gender-confused dinosaur that spits out eggs that can be thrown, and later ones throwing fireballs as well. Does anyone else see these mushroom blocks as cupcakes? Bosses at the end of the world are contained in separate rooms. Mauser, a bomb-obsessed mouse that can be beaten by his own bombs. Idiot. Triclide, a 3-headed fire-spewing snake. Fry Guy, a giant fireball that can turn into tiny ones when hit enough times. Claw Grip that... oh. I skipped them. Probably should have used that warp. Mask Gate, an aggressive Raven-like gate that for the most part end the level, but for the last one it attacks the player and opens up when attacked enough times. And of course, Wart himself as the final boss. He takes 6 hits from throwing vegetables into his mouth. How do you get these vegetables? In this machine, in his lair. Idiot. Well, it's not like it's easy anyways. His bubbles will destroy the vegetables and it'll kill you off if you're not careful. Also, the blind shots don't really help him because you have to avoid the damn things too. Screw it, let's move on. Fly! Fly, my pretties! We will make the entire world our own kingdom. Don't! Alright, we got one last game to look at. Super Mario Bros. 3. Now this is what I know. I played a lot of this game as a kid. All these new worlds, the awesome amount of power-ups, the great looking locations, and oh, that soundtrack. Okay, here's the gist. Bowser is taking over all the kingdoms, turning each king of the respective lands into various creatures, and giving this magic staffs to his 7 Koopalings. Peach will help out every time to save each world, at least she's doing her job and not being a freaking damsel in distress. Mario has to go through 8 worlds. Grassland, Desert Hill, Seaside, Big Island, the Sky... The Sky? Really? Wow. Iceland, okay, yeah, really lazy. Pipe Maze, better. And the Castle of Koopa. Unlike the other games, level selection is laid out on a map, where you can go to any location as long as it's not locked to a level. Each map contains up to 10 levels, 2 enemy encounters, 1 to 3 fortresses, 1 castle with an airship level acting as a boss stage, several card spaces to earn lives, toad houses that will grant you a power-up when you pick a boss, and sometimes a matchup game will appear. I honestly don't know what these do because I haven't been able to complete them for the life of me. Each world also has their own types of traps and enemies, like the Iceland having ice physics and frozen coins, and desert hills having fire snakes, quicksand, and an English sun that will make you squeal in agony. I'm not going to name all the enemies in this game, not only because there are too many to list, but I also skipped a couple of worlds because the seaside made me rage enough to use the only warp whistle I had. Yeah, I'm lame. But I will say there are enemies that have returned from previous games, like Lakitu, Goombas, Koopa Troopas, Pokies, and yeah! Bombs. No Shy Guys, though. They will be restricted to RPGs for all eternity. There are also some new ones that also come back, like Chain Jumps. Power-ups, however, are a lot more forgetting on the quantity, but holy shit, there are a ton. I'm going to start with the tools. Stuff you can get from certain battles, Peach's letters, and going behind a stage to find a hidden room. Oh yes, the whole game is a screenplay. Yeah, that's charming, but that kind of destroys the immersion a bit, doesn't it? Now well. These include warp whistles. There are only 2 in the game, but you can use them to skip some worlds you don't like. Screw you, Seaside. Clouds that allow you to skip 1 level, but no more. Hammers that can destroy obstacles on the map. And music boxes that will cause enemies to fall asleep, so you don't have to fight them. But they give you so much cool stuff like Starman, so what's the point of using you? There are returning power-ups like the Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman for the first game, but there are 4 new suits that make an appearance. The popular Raccoon Leaf that will give Mario a tail and allow him to fly for a while with a running start, and also has a variant that allows Mario to have infinite momentum for one stage that can be given by Peach. The Tanuki suit that acts like the raccoon tail but can cause Mario to turn into a statue and act like a ground pound, but honestly I never use it. The Frog suit, which is great for swimming, but not really for land, but there's not really a whole lot of water levels anyways, so what's the point? And the Hammer suit, a deadly suit with an arcing hammer throw and the ability to block fire while crouching, but I forgot I could do so. Well, I cheated the system and got 5 of them from a Toad House, so who cares? But really the raccoon tail is a lot more appealing, especially if you just have enough of a level to just go. There are still 1-up mushrooms to grab and 100 coins that will grant you an extra life, but the game lets you get lives in many more ways. I talked about this card spaces earlier, where you can line up the pictures to get lives. Mushrooms get 2, flowers get 3, and stars get 5. And ending the stage also gives you these cards. If you get 3 in a row, you get lives of similar amount of the card spaces, but you still get at least 1 when you get 3, so that's nice. Now the bosses, they're not very special. A creature named Boom Boom, yes, that's his name, occupies every fortress, and you just need to jump on him 3 times. The Koopalings are the same thing, but they accompany a castle, but they will escape the castle if you die in the stage, meaning you have to track them down if you do. And when you defeat a Koopaling, the respective king of that land will turn back to normal. And when you free all of them, you get a letter from Bowser himself that says he kidnapped Peach while you were helping out the wonderful citizens from these assholes. Sacre bleu, I am less shocked. So we go to Bowser's domain, kill a few ships, get molested by these hands that take you to the most frightening places in the kingdom, inhabited by flying cheap pataboos, and bros. Fire, hammer, boomerang, and sledge. But they award you with vacuum leave, so I'm happy. And then we fight Bowser himself, where you just make him crust a brick floor and let him fall to his demise. Idiot. And no credits, just the fact that you were in 8 worlds and you did it. Congratulations, you don't have to spend 5 more minutes on names! Woot! Oh, screw you, Peach. But man, Super Mario Bros. 3 was a blast to go back to. Yeah, it had its bullshit at certain times, but it was a great time. And I thought I'd have a bad time with 2 since I remember not having a lot of fun with it. But no, it was just as fun, until the final boss came in anyway. Screw Warp, cheating dirtbag. And while the other 2 aren't what I'd call aged, I did have a lot of fun with the first one, even though I didn't get past World 7. And Lost Worlds was just the same, only harder, so I didn't really want to try and get past World 1 too. But man, I'd recommend these games. If you can get them on the eShop or the WiiWare, The save states really help, especially with the first two games. Honestly, doing all of these games really burned me out, but I'm not done with Mario just yet. I have 2 other games on my belt, then I have another iconic series to go to. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, have a wonderful rest of the week, and I'll be sure to play with you guys next time. See you then.